This program contains adult content. Parental discretion is advised.
This plant violates every labor law in the book.
Get back to work, you slacker.
All calls are recorded.
Dr. Valentino to the ORP.
Welcome, everybody, and thanks for checking out this latest episode. I'm completely overwhelmed by the love shown by everybody interested in this concept. People on Twitter have been kind of contacting me and trying to set up everything, and it's very encouraging to have feedback coming in. Today, we have a very special guest for our first interview. We have Mr. Bill Sweeney from the Wicked Theory Podcast. I first became aware of Bill when I was looking around the net for forums that dealt with the show Preacher. I was blown away with this show, and I wanted to know more, so I kind of looked around, and I used to be big into Lost, so I was into forum boards on Lost, trying to find theories and people's takes on certain stuff that was going on, so I was trying to do the same thing for Preacher. I never read the comic, so I was kind of flying blind. I wanted to know more. So anyway, I found the show, Preacher versus Creature, and a little background on that. It takes on the TV versus what the comic is. So the first season didn't really line up because the comic takes place after what the TV show, we'll call it kind of pseudo prequel. But the insight into the characters and the knowledge, you can tell right away. These guys are real versed in the comic, know it inside and out, and had some really good discussions on the characters and how the show feels, looks, how the storylines are going to flesh out. So yeah, I was instantly hooked to the show, and then I was instantly hooked to the podcast. In listening to that podcast, I found the main project podcast that he was involved with, Wicked Theory, and I was hooked instantly. The biggest thing is they do a live show every Saturday night on Mixlr, and they have an interaction in real time with their fan base, and it's a very unique approach to podcasting, and it's something that kind of hooked me right from the start. This episode, I ran into some technical issues and ended up having to record directly through Skype. So the sound has got a slight echo, Bill's voice, and mine's a little teeny, but I felt, getting into it, that I needed to continue because the interview was great, and it was a moment that had to be captured. So there's, it's totally listenable too, but be warned, there's a little bit of, doesn't sound as good as this through a board, we'll just say. He had two songs that he brought up, that he's recently into from Gorillaz, band Gorillaz. If you don't know who Gorillaz are, they're kind of like a mashup band, I should say, of a bunch of artists that got together, and it's, how should I put this genre? It's sort of like a hip-hop kind of rap genre, but it's different. If you don't know who Gorillaz are, I'm sure you know the song Feel Good Inc. And if you want to check it out, I've got Dare, which is one of the songs that he mentioned, and Feel Good Inc. right at the end after the closeout of the show. The track backing me right now is one of my favorite Gorillaz songs. It's called Rhinestone Eyes. Also, I've included a Wicked Theory bumper on how to listen to and enjoy the cast. It's narrated by Paula Allen. She has her own podcast, which I highly suggest you listen to as well, because it's really good. It's called Tell Me Stories with Paula Allen. And it's another great music behind-the-scenes podcast, and you should check it out. As well as they have a deal. Wicked Theory has a deal with Audible.com, so check it out. It gives you some information directly after this talk-up. So check it out and show Wicked Theory some love, and add them to your regular pod list. Big thanks to everyone that supported me in doing this, and it's been a little bit of a journey lately, but everybody, like I said in the beginning, has shown a lot of love, and it's great to get a little bit of feedback every now and again. Anyway, talked way too much, so let's get on with it.
If you can hear the sound of my voice, well, you're one of the lucky ones, because right now, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service, just for you, listeners of the Wicked Theory Podcast. You guys can get your hands on Audible copies of anything by Stephen King, basically, The Hobbit, or Arthur C. Clarke. You like 2001? Imagine that in your ears. What would that sound like? Well, you guys can check it out now over at audibletrial.com/Wicked Theory. Check it out now.
Let's start off by introducing yourself and who you are and what you do and how you came upon finding me.
All right, so my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm from New York City, Staten Island, more specifically. And I'm a podcaster, I guess. And I ended up here because I was on the internet and I took a wrong turn. It turned out to be a good turn. I don't know. I know you because you listen to the show that I have.
So New York, what's it like living in New York? Because I spent 20 years living in Toronto, so I know big city. I kind of lived in a big city, but that's a bigger city.
Yeah, well, I guess, I'm probably, it's one of these things where I was born here, so it's like my only frame of reference. Yeah. So it's a challenge, even at that level. I'll say that, in all the basic ways, getting around, and the price of everything are probably like the two big factors for everybody that drive everybody the most crazy here. I would generally say. Just because, especially now here on the island I live on, because, the infrastructure doesn't hold up now. All the road work that was originally laid out years ago, it's not really holding up, and they aren't really making a move to kind of address it. But
the taxes and whatnot are not covering for road repair and all that. Is that how it works there? Because I'll just give you a little background. So in Canada, the way it works is our property tax and taxes on food and all that tax goes into a major pot, and they kind of use that to do road work and upgrade neighborhoods and that. Is similar idea? Or?
Yeah, similar thing. It's definitely coming out of the taxes you're paying, to the state and to the county, to the locality. But the thing is for the island I'm on, though, because, while we're included into the boroughs of New York City, Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. See, it's my accent mushing it all up. Staten Island. So it's just that what it is that they've been trying years ago. A lot of the wetlands and a lot of these areas and zones on Staten Island were marked off as protected lands. So they can't develop there, and so these basic arteries that cut through most of the island for the traffic. The island's growing too fast now. Okay. And it's getting kind of crazy. The island is starting to get really nutty around 3:00 when all the kids and all the buses are out, or the morning rush hour traffic for the same reasons. It's just, it's getting kooky. The roads are kept up as much as, a city does that. I'm sure every city area's got these guys, nothing's ever good enough.
No.
The city's never, in any city, I'm sure the city's never doing enough.
No,
everybody's always angry.
Exactly. Yeah, cool. So, day to day, what do you do?
So my day job is actually work in a warehouse, and the interesting side of that is that it's a wholesale warehouse. It's in the automotive supply chain.
Cool.
So it's all car parts.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so it's wholesale, and we're a pickup location, basically. So we're like a satellite branch, and the mom and pop shops, the small stores, not the chains. We serve the mom and pop, the small stores. Cool. And so we're like a pickup location. If they've, not only do we does our company serve them every day and have a delivery of replenishment stock for them, but also like we have these satellite branches where like, oh, we don't have it on the shelf, or oh, it's not an unusual item, or it's too big. We can't even have it in the store. Like, that's why we're nearby. We have all these locations.
Right on.
So,
so you got, has Tommy Boy ever dropped by?
Well, see, management, when you're a satellite branch and like, you're X miles away, like, it's rare. I'll say it's rare that any boy, Tommy or otherwise, comes by,
That's one of my favorite movies, man.
Yeah, that's the greatest representation I think the industry has in cinema at this point, which is, I'm sure people have tales,
Yeah.
But so with that, it's one of these gigs where what's funny about it, I was setting up, is the fact that like, so, what's great for me is that I don't have to deal with the public in a sense.
Yeah.
Because I did that for a long time. I worked counters. My parents had a deli when I was growing up.
Oh, cool.
And so, all that face-to-face stuff, I'm kind of like, as fun as it was, because I'm a clown basically, but this was a thing where it was like, oh man, like, a friend of mine mentioned the job because they were moving him to Jersey, and there was a slot opened up. And I was like, yeah, but dude, I don't even drive. And he's like, don't even worry about it. He was like, I don't know. He's like, you don't have to know anything about cars. I was like, okay, perfect. Done.
Just
like no one's gonna ask me like, hey man, like, does this go into? And it's like, no. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
So I mean, but it's a warehouse job, So it's uneventful in a big way, like kind of, sure, there's daily shenanigans and whatnot, but it's not like a thing where it's like, let's talk about warehouse life.
You know what, man? To be honest, sometimes that's a better way to go. I'll give you a rundown of my day today. So, just for comparison, like my day today was trying to figure out how, as a manager, I'm going to logistically figure out a new job that we're doing and juggle two guys on a 12-hour shift, and the stress of thinking about, is this guy going to want to work it? Is he going to be able to do the job? The whole day was just trying to logistically figure this out. So I remember when I used to work in warehouse work too, it was like, I shouldn't say mindless, but I can go to work, I can do my job, and I don't have to worry about other people and that whole arena of people coming down on you and the stress of it all.
Well, it sounds like nowadays you have, real management responsibilities. Like I have a management title. Like I'm a warehouse manager by title, but it's like my day-to-day activities, it's like it's me and one other guy. We have very, very tiny like versions of those things that happen. It's like, okay, we're running out of room for this particular line. All right, we got to find space. We got to make space. Like, and they're like, ordering more and telling you, okay, I know you don't have room for any of this, but we got this other stuff coming. It's like constantly changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that, but it's scaled down. You know what I mean? So it's like, you only have yourselves to blame too. That's the other thing. Yeah. Like if something's not getting done and it's a 2-man crew, it's like, okay, what do we do?
Yourself.
What's going on here? Like who's, it's all that fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least me and him get along, because that's the only other horror story like we hear out of the companies. Like sometimes when they pair up these guys or whatever happens in a small setup. I mean, it's one thing if it's like 6 guys and it's a big location and like you get, hours on end where you don't see the jerk or whatever.
Yeah.
Here it's face to face all day.
Yeah, you definitely have to get along. If you don't get along, it's not going to work. Cool. So let's jump into another section. Let's look at the passion side. So tell me, what is your biggest passion right now?
These days, it's the show. It's the podcast. It's now, here for years, I would just kind of default to, it's writing and art, because I do have a creative side like that. That's always been my thing on the side.
Yeah.
But I found a beast that fits, where I get just enough of I satiate all that craving, the creative longing, in a sense, where it's like, oh, okay, I want to do something, like, I want to feel like I want to paint, or I want to draw, or I got a story idea. Like, this answers all those kinds of little, because I do all that in it within a way. Like, I do the graphic design for the show. I make at least an image for every week. So that kind of handles like the art side. I get to play with, Illustrator or Photoshop and play, have that go on. So that's why this now has kind of like been this thing that kind of encompasses all these little, I want to be a goofball too. Like, I want to kind of, I want to ramble about nerd stuff. And part of it actually, the show launched in a way because, although I wanted to do it for a long time, when the kid, the young man, I should say, Dominic, who's on the show, off and on right now, but, long time, regular. Right now, he's Patreon exclusive. I don't know if you know, but like, it seems like the only time I can get him on mic is when, like, where he doesn't, I can't get him during the regular show. But he's so me and him were just talking nerd stuff once he started working at my job. And I was like, all right, you're the kid, you're the one, you're the other missing piece to the on mic puzzle. And he was down for it right away. So cool. It all fell in. Plus I wanted to do it for a while, but I wasn't in a good apartment for it. And once it turned out that I was moving into a place with my brother for a while, it was like, whoa, well, you play guitar and you're into a lot of the same stuff too. So this is all just going to fit right together. So we got Brother Bob playing guitar every week,
So that answers my second question on how it got started. So it all got started pretty much when Dom kind of got...
Yeah, that kind of pushed it over. I mean, I wanted to do it for a long time, and I was listening to a podcast called Podcasting 101, which you may know of, and really listened to every single episode, started to see the patterns of what all these guys were talking about, things that kind of overlapped, and like, oh, this guy, I've heard that before. I've heard that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Jay asked great questions on that show. And, that kind of was just fueling the fire listening to that. And then once everything kind of fit around the same time, it just kind of all came together. Where Dom popped up, the apartment happened, and it's got plenty of space for this kind of thing. So it's been a blast ever since.
Cool. So what would you say is the high point of this? Like, what have you reached your high point yet, or have you seen it?
Well, I mean, I guess
episode 100 maybe?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a milestone in a way, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I think it depends on how you define high point. Like, you know what I mean? What's been a high point at this point, high point? So, like, when we hit episode 50, and it was like, okay, this is working.
Yeah.
But at that point, when you looked back, had the things happen that were supposed to happen for a show like that, which is like a couple of people start to listen, and a couple of people start to email, and there's a little, even if it's tiny, but there's a little bit of audience growth or interaction.
Yeah, a little bit of feedback is always great.
Yeah, like if I'm only getting like a small number of listens, and who even knows about those numbers, what they really mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, if a couple of people are emailing, then all right. That's, like I say to these guys all the time. I'm like, I see all these numbers, but you know what I feel like? I feel like the only people that we hear from are the ones that I can quantify in a way.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? Because I don't see any other activity that backs up the numbers I see in my stats. It's like, all right, it says this, but like 6 people, 8 people, maybe 10, 12 people on a semi-regular basis engage with the show. And it's like, they're all great fans or followers, listeners, whatever.
Yep.
But it's just a thing where it's like, okay, all right, so I can't really hold much heat to those numbers that I see in the end.
I think at this point, I should say at this stage of where radio and whatnot is, I think podcasts are still in the infancy. Like, you look at radio and all that, and it's still there. I mean, it's definitely changing. Like, again, to go back, you and I, a year ago, I was listening to audiobooks on tape, right? Well, not on tape, but, audiobooks through like
Sure.
audible.com or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of, if you look at it right now, and I talk to people at work, and they're still like, have no idea what a podcast is. And, try to convince these people that, like, just start it, because that's kind of how I found you. But I think, when we're talking about quantifying listenership, I think it's still small. I think it's like the beginning of MP3 still, where, it's going to grow, and you can see it growing. But it's a very niche market, right?
Yeah, I think it's a thing where it has potential, but right now, like, it's the delivery format has to kind of hit some kind of, I don't know, something like some mass change.
It's got to be in
like,
everybody's car and accessible by dial, basically.
Yeah, I think once like somebody like, but even still, like somebody like Facebook or Twitter or one of these things starts doing something like some mass exposure kind of a thing, like, or it's going to take like one celebrity, like Serial kind of did that. Like, it's like whether you love it or hate it as a podcaster or whatever, like it just had crossover exposure.
Yeah.
Like Saturday Night Live did a bit about it. You know what I mean? So it's like people were like, oh, what is that even, if they don't know it at all?
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that, as much as it's in its infancy, it's still a thing where like it's blowing up within itself.
Oh yeah.
Like people who are into it are starting them up like crazy because they see how easy it is.
Yeah.
Which is cool, and it's what happened to me, and doing 2 or 3, which is what's happening to me. But, the thing is that like, so that means that it becomes where it can feel a little saturated, or, it can be like a hard kind of thing. Like, oh, if you're into podcasts, where do I start? And so of course, that's one of the reasons why too, a lot of these bigger celebrity type names, even just stand-up comedians who have them, and I'm getting a really good following.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think who survives easier too are the niche shows. Like, if your show is clean cut and kind of dedicated to something like this, I think those shows have a better chance than something like mine, which has a kind of a generic, my main show, which has kind of a generic name where it's like, okay, it doesn't really say what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a nerd show. It's a geek hangout show.
Yeah.
Sure, it's guys from New York City, but I don't push that NYC angle really.
Yeah.
That's a thing you figure out or find out. But it's a thing where it's like, well, those are everywhere. Like those are the easy out of podcasting in a sense. It's like, I'm just gonna turn on the mics and hang with my friends. We're all funny guys, and that's it's everybody's story in a way for a lot of shows.
Yeah, but
and some of those shows,
you do have a lot of segments that are kind of I listen to a lot of them as well, but a lot of your segments are very unique to your show. And I guess, like you say, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, how do you get exposure? How do you put yourself above the rest of the pack, right?
Yeah. Well, it's that, and it's, I think internally it's like, how do you just try to end up being something that's different, a different experience for people like that, rather than it just kind of being kind of flat and us just kind of talking and kind of being like a down note kind of flat show. Like, if it doesn't have some kind of energy, like regardless of what, maybe it's nonsense we're talking about, or, we're actually wrong, but at least there's an energy in the room, and it's not like monotoned and flat and kind of like lackluster. Like, you have to kind of really wait for us to get to something for it to be engaging at all. Because like, even if, what I hope is that even if like you're a regular listener, you're like, oh, they do this segment every once in a while, I'm really not into it, but I also don't have the urge to skip ahead, then I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
if you're willing to sit through segments that maybe you're not a big fan of, but you're like, oh, at least I know there's going to be some jokes in there or whatever, or something funny will happen. Someone will say something stupid.
Yeah, almost like a Howard Stern effect, where people were listening to see what he was going to do next, even though they didn't like the show.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I hate him, but I know he's going to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll settle for that. Settle for that. Hate listen. I'm fine with hate listening.
Yeah, hate listen or hate watch, like Riverdale.
Yeah, right.
Cool. So, no, that's awesome. So how much time do you spend doing this a week? Like recording, mixing, artwork, all that jazz?
Well, I should probably be doing more, but I do spend a decent amount of time. Well, the show itself, because we record it live on Saturday nights on Mixler, so that captures the audio basically.
Yep.
And then from there, just the next day, I start working on cutting it up. But now that we do the show in actually long parts, like basically in half.
Yeah.
You know, the first part of the show just kind of, and the reason we do that is it kind of just came out of the natural progression of it, which was like, hey, we do an hour and a half podcast. We could be doing it live. Let's do it live.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We get 3 hours a day as per the package I have.
Yep.
There's time left over every time we're on. We'll just leave the mics on. And then it was like, well, if we start a Patreon, we could record the stuff that we leave to the side instead of throwing it out.
Right.
Okay, we'll do that. Now the after show is actually like a full run of the hour. We used to just kind of leave the mics on for a little bit, get tired, turn them off. But now it's like, okay, we're doing a thing. How much do we want to commit to it? And so it's like, I think we're out of steam, but Palmer hates me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, what's funny is like as we speak right now, the last 3 or 4 episodes, we were just like trying really hard to keep it under time. They kept on getting longer. It's like just trying to keep it like a digestible hour and a half, you know. But
yeah.
What was the original question?
Well, I was like, so how much time do you spend kind of mixing, editing?
Right. So then on Sundays, I'll get up, I'll split the episode, basically cut out maybe something in the middle. Like I'll try not to leave in. Sometimes I'll do intermission song, which is like probably some like copyright thing, but I don't want to leave it in anything.
Yeah.
So I take it out. It's just for like the live show. So but I don't really do full edit anymore.
Yeah.
Like when we were pre-recording before doing it live, you know, and sometimes I will now too, don't get me wrong, but it's small things. It's like moments that I know that there's a big mess up or if there's a long section where it's like, it was one of us coughed a lot and they can cut it out and I catch it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have conversations about how much we cough and do all this kind of stuff that's very unprofessional.
Yeah.
With the guys off mic and, you know, it's not always syncing. It happens. What are you gonna do? I'm trying not to be crazy about it. You know what I mean? But I'm guilty of it too, as I'm sure if you've listened, you can hear me coughing every once in a while. But we're smokers, so it's hard for us to kind of break out of it completely. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
The point being that, so it's a few hours on Sunday, but I'll drag it out because I get lost in the YouTube or something like that.
Do you so just to go off on another thing, do you do all the background stuff before the show, or do you have somebody like Palmer kind of pulling that stuff together?
So basically, like, we have a document in Google Docs that we all have access to. That's like a framework. Every week we just kind of load it full of things.
Right, so you're collaborating the work.
Yeah, but it really at this point now, it's basically just like a skeleton. We change a couple of things in the doc, and the big thing that changes is just the news list.
Right. And
that's just so that the links go out. The opening line that we drop every week is supposed to be in there. You know, it's all in sequence. It's all in run order. But yeah, the idea is that we're all supposed to kind of, as the week goes on, be dropping stuff in there, at least news articles that we see that we want to talk about. And then like come Friday, like I would go back in, take out, because it's always going to be too much, you know. And the idea is that we throw in a bunch of stuff and then we try and trim it down to the coolest or most relevant or chat worthy of those things.
Yeah. And
so that's a hit or a miss every week. How much is in there? Maybe we're doing it Friday night. You know, maybe we're doing it during the week. But maybe, you know, for the most part, it's like, you know, usually me and Palmer and Ed have these breakdowns. And then, you know, it's ready to go Saturday morning. And, you know, sometimes it's some last minute changes. Like if there's a convention going, we try to stay on top of it because sometimes on Saturday something will break and it'll be like, oh, we didn't know. And it's because we were live and we weren't watching the internet, you know. So it's 7 o'clock our time. Meanwhile, like in California, you know, Comic-Con's going on and they're playing the world premiere trailer for something. But, you know, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Cool. So let's just go on. Let's say if you had the means, somebody said you could quit your job and do this full time, would you?
Oh yeah. Like if I could find a way to really monetize some aspect of my life
Yeah.
that just meant I could sit around and do podcasting and or creative endeavors in general.
Yeah.
Oh man, forget it. That's the dream. That's the dream, brother.
Yeah.
You know?
So I guess as of the last episode, I guess now you're being sponsored by Audible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a full sponsorship thing. It's an affiliate program basically,
Right.
And but we got that going now, so that's a little thing. You know,
Awesome.
we got a
A little stepping stone.
Yeah, you know, the .com/Wicked Theory. We get to put our name on the end of something, and
Yep.
you know, it's good. It's it's about taking a step in the realm of sounding professional. Everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody else is. Well, what's next? Blue Apron. So, when it comes to stuff like that, do you like champion all that stuff, or do you have, do you divvy up some stuff for the boys to like, do media work or?
Well, you know, it's a thing where Ed has taken on some good responsibility with it because he's got a thing called the DC TV Report,
Yep.
which started as basic quick breakdowns of everything, DC superhero related on TV. And, as it just kind of grew and changed into its own thing, it's a decent responsibility for him during the week. He's got to, because those shows, there's too many of them now.
Yeah.
And so I think he's got like 4 just right now on Mondays.
Wow.
Like on Monday, I think, right? Because it's Supergirl, Gotham,
Yep.
Lucifer, and I think Preacher is going to be on Mondays now.
That's right. Yep.
So, and he's including that in it. And, I'm like, we do a Preacher show here, okay, buddy? He's like, so if you did a Gotham show, I couldn't do Gotham. I'm like, I guess you got me.
Yeah.
I guess you got me.
Technicality.
I guess you got me. So, you bastard, you. But,
So next one would, you can answer this one or you don't have to. Do you have
Then I say no. Then I say no from the jump. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Do you have a significant other, and how do they feel about the time you're spending at this?
No, they don't say much because there is none. So I know that they would, though, probably. I say this all the time. I say that if I was in a relationship right now, because I think about it sometimes, like I can contextualize the previous ones I was in kind of in a way where it's like, because that's what you do if like you try to like, just imagine like if you're single at the time and it's like, oh, how would this go down? Probably not well if I had a girl right now.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you're doing, like, you know what I mean? For whatever reason pops in your head. But, because I probably wouldn't have let it slip into 2 and then now a 3rd show on the horizon for us.
Right.
We haven't fully announced yet, but that's coming soon.
Yep.
But it's a thing where it's like, yeah, I think. And then sometimes, it's on hiatus right now, which I hate to say the word. It's on a break right now. But, I was helping do the podcast for my local comic shop. And that's just a thing where, like, it took a break. And it's the old dreaded, don't take a break if you're a podcaster because they never come back.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And it seems, like, really freaking true. Like, and it's like, I heard some people talking about, like when I was listening to going back to Podcasting 101, Jay and even I, because going along with the episodes, started to see the pattern of, it seems like around 70s. Like, if a show goes for a good amount, it seems like somewhere in the 70s, they tend to peter out, and then like if you get over the 100s, it's like right after 100, like somewhere, like that's the second area where shows like the number seems to be. And it's like, it's a crazy little pattern that started to arise. It's
right.
Very odd. But so if I was in a relationship, it's something would have to go, and it would probably be the relationship, much to my chagrin, because she would just be like, unless she was on the shows. If she was involved somehow, then that would be like really cool.
Yeah.
Besides, getting me, an out in this scenaririo, but that would be the dream. Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like whether she wanted to be on mic or not, but kind of was like really into it and helpful or something, or, was just totally chill, then sweet. Yep. Obviously there'll be a limit to how much you can do because it's like, okay, I'd like some us time. But I don't know how that would go down.
Yeah. So that would bring me to the second part. Who would win in the battle? Podcasting or the girl?
Well, like I said, if it's as it stands right now, I guess if it was like that, I'd say, look, all together, I gotta get rid of podcasting. Like,
or a little bit.
Like,
One?
like,
Can
hey,
I drop one?
like what? But I would try to just get away with scaling back. I'd be like, well, look, the other show, we record that every 2 weeks, you know what I mean? And we do 2 episodes but it just eats up my weekends for the schedule that we have for my particular show.
Right.
It would destroy it because it's like Friday night. Not that I have to on Friday night, but that's the night that like, me and Palmer are usually kind of talking about the next day.
Right.
We talk about during the week too, but and then on Saturday, like it's in the middle of early Saturday evenings for local time. Like it starts at 7 p.m. So it's like, well, there goes doing anything.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday I'm going to edit. Forget it. Girlfriend would be like, "Who are you? I forgot what you look like."
Exactly.
In the other room for 17 hours.
Yeah. Have you ever stepped back and said, "What the hell am I doing?"
Constantly. And that goes for life.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Goes for life. Yeah. I think that's the secret of life, kind of one of those things where it's like, when you realize that, nobody knows it's like one of those lessons. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's guessing their way through it. That's like one of the other ones, like, because that's the flip side, right? It's like, if you have no idea what you're doing, you're probably going, what the hell am I doing half the time?
Exactly.
Like, but, and this is a thing in general podcasting where it's like, I'm winging it. As much as anything else in life, come back to that, I'm winging it. I'm probably, if you scaled me up against our show up against anything else, we're probably, tech in a technical aspect as far as tech stuff goes, not that great, or could be better. A lot of wanting on that end. But
you're being modest. You're being modest. It's great.
Well, then maybe it's great I'm being modest then, okay? Let me have my modest moment.
All right, there you go.
Well, please, sir, a moment of modesty.
All right, let's get into some Fave Fives. You got a favorite band and why?
These days it's Gorillaz. Like, I haven't fully absorbed the newest album yet, but it's like one of these bands where I'm a scatterbrain, so something that's kind of like all over the place like they are, especially when you have full albums of theirs to kind of like listen to and take that in as a audio journey.
Yeah.
It speaks to me on a lot of levels, and usually every song in a very different way. Plastic Beach, probably like as an album out for them, is one of the most solid ones.
So Gorillaz, I know, I got their last couple albums, and just curious, because I've never seen them in concert, and I've only heard this, but do they actually just do like the caricatures on big screen, or do they have the actual band members come out, or how do they do that,
They used to, I think originally they used to do it, like the very, very first appearances, I think they did it just behind the screen just to kind of follow through with the gimmick, because it wasn't like a secret that it was the guy who used to be the front man for Blur, like, you know what I mean? So
that's right.
That quickly turned into a thing where it was like a mishmash of the stuff, and then now it's just like there's just giant screens in the background. They've accumulated a lot of animation stuff over the years from these different videos and other little side productions during downtime and stuff, and graphics and stuff. So that's all going on the screens all around. It's one of these rare things where like, here's a band that actually has stuff to show you, as opposed to like every band trying to kind of like every time having to get find some kind of creative through line, or what's this tour going to be? Oh, it's the Big Butts on Display tour, or it's it's,
exactly.
It's I Got Gold tour, or whatever.
It's Explosion tour.
Yeah, they kind of wrap every album around a theme anyway, by default, because it's so based in their visual being a cartoon thing. But yeah, I haven't seen them live. I do have a DVD of Demon Days, which I think is a second album technically.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's a live thing. And it's a really good bunch of performances. It's a good live show that you can track down if you're into Gorillaz.
Yep. This one's going to be tough, because there's so much of it, but do you have a favorite movie? Or one that you go to, one that you can't say it's on TV, you can't walk away from it?
Wow, now you just reframed it. So I was like, I didn't even think of it in the context of one of the go-to. Because I don't know if I have a go-to. I'll say this much: for a while, like a typical guy of my era, I was obsessed with Fight Club. So that's probably like a movie, that and The Matrix. Maybe not watched them as much as that this may sound like, but definitely obsessed about them, or thought they were like the coolest shit ever. And I mean, not even just because of their, upfront kind of dude appeal, but because it was like deeper stuff. If you wanted to kind of like look into it, like the book for Fight Club is a pretty fucking crazy book.
Yeah.
And I bought this book.
Just off on a side tangent, have you read the second one, Fight Club 2?
The comic, yeah. And that was a weird thing in its own way, because it's more of a sequel like to the movie a little bit.
Okay.
And they do kind of fun stuff where you can see it's like experimenting with comics in the way that like the movie wanted to experiment with like film and did those kind of like cool inserts that you don't notice right away. And, these little games that you can only do in a film, so like sometimes on these panels, these pages, there'll be just a bottle of pills drawn as if it's on top of the page, spilled out across the page.
Oh.
And then the bottle and the pills are like totally blocking words and dialogue that you can't read. And then sometimes it's like contextually like important words. So it's like, they're intentionally trying to make you sit there and break this page down. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay. And then when they first kind of do it, like, it's like really cool and nifty, and they don't do it a whole hell of a lot, but there is a couple times where I was like, but I really feel like I'm not getting this conversation. Like,
I'm missing.
You guys, I think you covered too much of an important element right here. Like, besides the fact that I'm completely lost in this whole thing, but it really was about, what's cool about it in essence, if you were really into Fight Club, is it's like, the follow-up story really is the whole thing going 10 times more crazy.
Right.
So people have that if they want a recommendation. Go check that out. I'm sure it's collected by now.
Yeah, it's been on I think I'm going to put it on a pull list for sure. It's, I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah, I would say if you're in a bookshop or the Barnes and Nobles or something, maybe you don't want to buy it there or whatever, but you do see it, flip through it, take a look. Just to kind of get a gist of how they do play with the artwork. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. And Matrix, the first Matrix, or how do you feel about all three?
Well, how do we all feel about all three? You know what I mean? It's like
probably the same.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, when you first watch the first one and right at the end, and he flies up to the sky, and like, holy shit, this fucking what happens now? Like, I can't imagine. He's Jesus. He's basically digital Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, you really, really, really can do anything. You know what I mean? So. Yeah. There's elements of the other two that are cool, that work. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's hard to live up to the hype machine that first one had. It's almost like that thing where you can never top it. I mean, it's all there. The essence is achieved. Yeah. But I had bought in my obsession like this big hardcover book it's got the script in it and a whole bunch of the storyboards and original art, like all this kind of stuff, So I would just kind of like go through that all the time and have more fun, kind of just letting myself be like immersed in the world of it on that level.
How did you feel about Animatrix? Did you enjoy that one?
Yeah, those things were cool.
Yeah, I love those.
Those things were just amazing, And I'm kind of nervous about like this whole talk. There is talk about like rebooting it, or coming back into it to the left, where there's like, hey, there's other tales that can be told. And I'm like, okay, that's true.
Yeah, that's a whole another thing, this whole rebooting. But
but it's this lateral rebooting that they're doing. It's almost like with Aliens right now, where they're trying to come back into the Aliens franchise, not with Ripley, but to do stories somehow else in that universe. And it's like, well, then, Star Wars is doing it too. It's like, well, that shit's going to be hit or miss no matter how good you are. I mean, Star Wars with Disney and Marvel, that kind of machine going on over there, they might just be destined to have a good track record. But I think other franchises, for whatever reason, I don't know. They're good. Like, what's the Matrix going to look like when we're just kind of following some rando, like just some new guy who's not Neo?
Yeah, how can it not be Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, but like, if he's supposed to be he's the best ever. He is literally the Uno.
Yeah.
And how, like, so if he's the one that we're following 7, who's this guy in relationship?
Yeah. Exactly.
But they're talking about, well, it's the same thing with X-Men movies, right? Where it was like, oh, we got X-Men movies going on back in the, when they started. Immediately it was well, if anybody's getting a spin-off, it's Magneto and Wolverine. Yeah. Because they're like the coolest, or they have the most logical backstory to make a movie out of. So with Matrix, it's like, okay, we can make a Morpheus movie. Yes, you could.
You could.
Must we?
Yeah. Who's asking for it?
Nobody.
Yeah. Exactly. Comic book hero. Favorite.
Comic hero. It's tough. There's just so many good guys.
Yeah, exactly.
No, when I was young, it was toss up. And it probably still is in a lot of ways, just as a character, Captain America or the Hulk.
Right.
Like those two. But, like comics in general are just so different now. And I just mean like comics. I mean that in the industry sense, comics. So like, there's other options for me as a, what I mean? Like, I don't know how, as a kid, I never did understand. Like, I feel like comics, you kind of have to just fall into, and especially if it's like superhero stuff, and like kind of like take the ride. It's like coming into a soap opera late.
Right.
This show's. It's like, this show's been running. It's like, it must be how people just, women at home or whoever, fell into those shows, watching them, like, because it's like, it's been running forever. I have no idea who these people are, but that was interesting. Something interesting happened there, so I'm gonna come back tomorrow.
Yeah, so pick it up and see where we are.
Yeah, like, I don't know the context of any of this bullshit, but then slowly over time you kind of get backfilled.
Yeah.
Or you kind of want to know more, so you find ways to find out more. Oh, you watched that show? Oh, tell me what's going on with this guy. Oh, okay, and then same thing with comics. Like, oh, you finally, like with Dominic. When he was new into comics, granted, these days, like, he was looking everything up on a Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But when we first met, it was a lot of like, hey, who's this guy? Blah, 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 or who's that guy? And it was like, well, kid, let me tell you, that's Adam Warlock.
Yep. Would you say that they're more complex now? Being, I guess, where's the definition between it being a comic and a graphic novel?
Sometimes I feel like, it's like, because the whole thing with comic versus graphic novels, you can have two kinds of arguments around that. You can have, like, is it format, or is it like literal publishing format?
Yeah.
Or is it really about, like, maturity / complexity?
Right.
Story content question.
Yeah.
So it's loose, because some people view it different, like, in that way. But I think one of the things that kind of, like, makes comics a little predictable, though, right now, like, if you're following them all, is that even Marvel books do this, where most books do, because the trade paperback collection that'll come out every so often, the smallest form of that is usually like a $12 or $15 book, sometimes 10 if it's the first book in the run. But that collection usually ends up being 7 or 5 to 7 issues.
Yeah.
And so now they're all written to these 5 or 7 issue storylines.
Yeah.
So you don't get a lot of like 2-issue, 2-parter, or just one single thing where it's all, you do get them once in a while, but they're much more rare. So I feel like that's like an element that kind of gets lost in this whole trade paperback collection that some people kind of default to, oh, that's a graphic novel. And it's like, other people are like, well, no, a graphic novel is written specifically, it only comes out as a 120-page book.
Yeah. That's
and that it never came out monthly. So it's like, okay, obviously there's this whole, because it's the general public getting confused on terminology that was just kind of tossed around for years inside, fandom of comics or in that its own industry. And now it's like a little bit of conversational confusion in the general public. They're like, oh, it's a graphic novel. I'm like, it's Luke Cage. Like, back in the 70s, like when it came out, it was, that was not the idea. But,
exactly.
The particular run of comics you're talking about. So I guess, I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
These people, these kind of reporters have finally figured out, okay, boom, bam, biff, pow, comics are getting cool again. Headlines don't work anymore.
Let's package 20 comics into a book and call it a graphic novel and push it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's for the publishers.
Yeah. Next one. Do you have a favorite TV show? Currently.
Well, most recently, like Westworld I went crazy for, but most recently was Legion. on FX, which is, comic book based, but really, just decided to do its own thing. But whereas that usually is like sometimes it'll be a problem for the nerds because it's like, hey, they're really kind of doing whatever the hell they want with it. But this was like cool shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. It's probably on my top list as well right now. Like Legion, I'm a huge fan of that show.
I kind of figured it would be kind of good, and I was really interested. But then I was kind of blown away by they really did some work on this on the story level, and it's one of those shows that kind of really took advantage of its having okay, we can make this in a vacuum, all 10 episodes or whatever it was, and not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really took advantage of that structure where it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to show you crazy shit and not give you any answers for the first 5 episodes, and then we'll give you just a few.
Yeah.
Obviously
you a little bit of a bone and give you a little bit of touching into the universe, but not delve into it too deep.
Yeah, and or even what the hell is going on in general. Sure, you can kind of obviously you can follow in the literal moment what the deal is.
Yeah.
But anything that's a little bit further back behind that, like the mysteries or the what's kind of really going on, the bigger picture thing, like that shit they held back for a while. You could parse it out if you're paying attention, but I feel I was surprised that, I was waiting to hear from people like, no, man, that show's confusing. I don't know if I understood any of that. But, maybe those people didn't stick around. I don't know. I do know one guy who kind of watched it for a little bit and gave it up, and he was like, I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Show's pretty much amazing, so I don't know what you're missing out on.
Do you think, for that show in particular, do you think that, so how am I going to say this? So the way I'm thinking about it is, you take Walking Dead, right? So Walking Dead kind of touched nerds. It kind of touched the average viewer that wanted something violent. It touched a bunch of people in a different way. Legion is more kind of centralized around comic lovers and the universe. Do you think that shows like maybe Walking Dead are more broader and they're probably going to pull in more viewership? Well, not recently because they're kind of dropping off, but you think Legion will have the same legs as that? Or?
I think Legion's going to be a show where if they can, it's going to be a binge show. It's going to be a show that'll season 2 or 3, it'll spike in viewership.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, once it's available on some other distribution networks, but I think the thing is that with what's cool about Legion is I can just tell you it's a sci-fi show.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you it's comic books.
That's
because
right.
it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's really doesn't deal with superhero bullshit. It just deals with people who it's like Stephen King's Firestarter.
Mm-hmm.
This person's just got an ability. It's basically just a cool, telekinesis story to the next freaking level, but it's more of a head trip than anything. The experience you go on with that show is the cool shit isn't really necessarily, every single little it's not the action elements aren't about fighting, fisticuffs and preventing
and you're not entirely sure if this is still not all in his head or not.
There's a certain level where, it would be a real, screw over to the fans, but they could pull back in season 3 and be like, boop, no, since episode 1, it's all been in his head. And I'd be like, fuck you.
Well, that was close.
Brilliant.
I think episode 3, I think it was, that actually did that sort of. Mm-hmm. And I did that. I was like, what the? No, not a dreamscape. Don't do it. Favorite food? Pizza.
Yeah, it's close. It's if I'm pressed, it's got to be my mom's lasagna.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Just that's the thing. Her red sauce. You know what I mean? I can settle for that because I can put that on top of everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's if I and then of course I'm a New York City boy. Pizza. I mean, who's not a fan of pizza? But
exactly. It's got all your basic food groups right there.
Well, that's that's what they tell you. And here's the thing. How you know it's good? Because every little kid loves it. A little kid. You say pizza, they will drop whatever they're doing. More for just about the only other thing I think is ice cream.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If you got a kid who's crying or whatever, or is being stubborn, no, and you say just name some other. I got popcorn or I got chips. No. But you say pizza or ice cream, that kid will just stop,
Yep.
I'll
Guaranteed.
be like, okay, all right. all
Yep.
right,
Guaranteed.
all right. At least that's what I've seen.
No, it's true. I've got two young girls, and they'll drop what they're doing for pizza.
There you go.
And it can be any day of the week or every day of the week.
We'll have it for breakfast. We don't care. We're kids.
Cold pizza is the best.
If you say it's cool, Dad, we're doing it.
Yeah. So we're just about to end of the show here, and I just wanted to touch base with Bill here to find out exactly where people can find you.
Well, you can hear the Wicked Theory podcast on iTunes and all the cool podcasting devices. Just search for it. And Preacher vs. Preacher, or Preacher vs. Preacher, which we mentioned earlier, is coming back for a second season on the iTunes and whatnots. And wickedtheory.com. And if anybody wants to help out the show, you can check us out look for us on Patreon, or you can go to audibletrial.com/Wicked Theory, and you get a free download and a free 30-day trial on us. And you can go check it out. Check out some audiobooks. The kids love them because who wants to read?
Right on.
And that'll do it.
Yep. So thanks again for being on. I appreciate it. And
I had a great time. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, most times it's text, so can't really get the context of each other. But yeah. But
that's the big bane of the internet. The old, what's this context in this text?
Yeah. Cool. All right. We'll definitely sign off this time. Okay.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No problem. All right.
All right, man.
Talk to you later.
Have a good night, bud.
Yeah, you too, man.
Bye-bye.
Later.
The Wicked Theory podcast is heard live every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern until whenever. Just go to mixler.com/wicked-theory. Mixler is MIXLR. Sign up to join the chat. Then click the follow button to get reminders whenever the show goes live. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, wherever good podcasts are given away for free, and at wickedtheory.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/Wicked Theory. There you can get the after show if you miss it live. God forbid. Plus other exclusive episodes. As always, send your emails to podcast@wickedtheory.com.
there.